educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. I appreciate you tuning in, and we have an individual that's going to talk to us about leadership. Something that a lot of us, sometimes we struggle with, and we're not sure exactly what type of leaders we may be in a particular situation. But this individual, he is the founder and CEO of Three Sparrows Executive Services. And as a business coach, he helps small businesses empower their team members to grow from clock punchers to owners and grow 10 times their personal and business success. A lot of times we don't understand what that really means and how to really motivate our employees or maybe even our co-workers also, because we can be the catalyst to growing any and everything that we put our hands to. I thank y'all very much for listening today, and I bring none other to you than Ryan Johnson. Ryan, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, Maurice. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
Cool. So, as I stated earlier, we're going to talk about leadership. And a lot of times we don't put a lot of much emphasis on it. We talk about, hey, how to grow your business and who to maybe outsource to or whatever. We've touched other things. A lot of times we don't talk about what type of leader we may need to be and what we like to grow to be. So what role does an effective leader play in the growth of a small business?
Yeah, this will be a good question to unpack because there's no, I'll give you a succinct answer and then we can unpack it. I'll start with the succinct answer. It's everything.
Right.
So if there is no good leadership to get started,
mm-hmm.
you're not going to be able to scale to that goal that you have for the business.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a great idea. You may be great at what you do, but if you're not a great leader, you will not command the attention of your people. You won't be able to attract good people. If you do, they won't stick around very long.
Right.
If your leadership's poor.
Right.
And then you won't be able to captivate your audience that you're trying to sell to.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the people first. I think that's the best place to start,
mm-hmm.
attracting good talent. So I'm a former baseball coach,
mm-hmm.
professional baseball player for about 5 years in independent leagues. So I know a lot about coaching
mm-hmm.
and leadership on the field. It's very similar to military leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be strong in sports to coach young men and to play at a high level, to coach at a high level. And you have to be able to command their attention or else they just quit playing for you. So I like to think of leadership in the business world just like your coaching an athletic team.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to share a strong vision,
mm-hmm.
give a great mission, a very compelling mission as well, and then empower the people to be able to execute on that vision and that mission.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as, if a coach came in day one at orientation meeting with the guys and said, okay, guys, I love the game. I'm so glad that you're here.
Right.
But I don't really know what we're going to do. We're going to give it our best. And if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. How's that?
Right.
And unfortunately, that doesn't work.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people in business kind of approach it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just not going to get off the ground, nor are you going to reach your goals.
One of the things that you mentioned about being on a sports team, a lot of times we don't understand how important that really is. One, to be, like you said, as a player, is one thing that as a player you have your teammates, but to actually coach the different personalities, egos, whatever it might be, sometimes you have to really, because I'm a former youth basketball and football coach, so I understand it's one thing probably to touch adults, but it's another thing to wrangle the kids, right?
Yeah.
So I totally understand the trying to bring in the personalities together and help them to work together and all those type of things. So what type of a leader that has to be able to, I guess, get into the trenches with these with whoever you're working with?
Yeah. They have to understand their personnel. Obviously, they have to get to know them. A lot of times we don't want to get to know the people that we're working with. And that doesn't mean you have to, go super deep on the personal side.
Right.
But you have to know their goals. You have to know their motivation, what motivates them, what kind of personalities they have, how are they going to react in high stress situations. Are they going to be able to do work on their own to be able to reach the standards and commitments that we have throughout the week? So it's going to take time. It's going to take time to really understand who you're recruiting to the team first,
Right.
and make sure they're a good fit, and then try to determine if they're coachable. One of my favorite movies out there is a Disney sports movie based on the hockey movie. The USA beat the Russians. Yeah, you remember that one.
Yeah.
And he gave everybody an assessment, all the players an assessment, and it was kind of a crazy assessment. It was really long, and one guy didn't want to take it, the hockey goalie. And so he called him on it and said, "Why didn't you take my assessment?" He said, "Well, I didn't think it was necessary. It doesn't mean anything to hockey." And goes, "Okay, thanks." And he walks off. He says, "Well, why do you ask?" He goes, "Well, don't worry. You already took the assessment." And he said, I didn't take it. I didn't give it to you just to give it to you. I gave it to you to find out how hard I could push you, what type of person you really were, and how you're going to react to different situations, what your integrity level is." And so I'm a big fan of some sort of a personality assessment on the front end, so you know how to develop them once they become part of your team.
So now we're going to take it to your business, right? So now how do you flip it to take that idea and to develop your leaders within your organization now that you can trust them to handle different parts or aspects and or projects within the organization?
Yeah. Again, creating a management team is a great way to do that. The director or the supervisor, the team lead, whatever you want to call a manager, they need to be a part of a team with the CEO, with the business owner. They need to be able to pull together the strategic plan together. They need to be able to weigh in on the most important things that the company has to accomplish to get where they want to go, create those goals, and then start creating the standard operating procedures. If they do that together, they're going to be able to really rally behind the vision and the mission. If the top leader just says, "Okay, I'm going to recruit you because of XYZ, because you're really good at this, but I don't want you to give me any input. I just want you to go do it." That's not very compelling. People aren't going to want to just come in and do that. Just like a good athlete, you have to improvise. You have to. Right. That's part of a great athlete, is knowing how to change. Call an audible at the line of scrimmage for a quarterback. You're not going to be able to scale your company. So if you're an entrepreneur thinking that's how you're going to run your business, get ready for some 80-hour weeks, because everything's going to come to you to make decisions on. Everybody's going to be a clock puncher, like you said earlier. That's my big thing. Let's turn these clock punchers into these empowered owners, just like the owner. And if we give them stake in the business, incentivize things for them, so it is also in their best interest to grow. Not only help the company grow, now you've got a team. So bring them together to create the plan, empower them to execute it, and then incentivize getting to those goals.
So you mentioned clock puncher. Sometimes we have a lot of individuals that are in that space. So how do we encourage someone to flip the switch, to upgrade from that? A lot of time, and you touched on it a little bit, but I'd like for you to dig a little deeper into that. How do we get them from that place?
Yeah. First, I think there's so many people that aren't used to having somebody call them up, call them their standard up throughout their time at a business. Most leaders are trying to suppress as much empowerment as possible because it's harder to control. Just to be honest with you, if you get more people that are empowered to make more decisions, that have more information, it sometimes it can be a challenge.
Right.
But it's much better than you having to tell everybody every little thing. So I think it starts with that, breaking down that expectation and just really making sure that people understand that you want them to rise up and be empowered. So that's number one. Let's set the expectation that if you work for me, I want your ideas. I want to hear from you. Obviously, we're going to have a decision-making process that you have to go through, but we want to get your input. You're the expert. You're on the front lines. I have the vision and I know where we need to go, but I need you or else this is not going to happen. Just simple conversations like that will just, puff up the chest a little bit and just go, this is a great place. I can really see myself staying here for a long time. So we need to have those decisions. The second thing is we need to incentivize. Like I said earlier, just touched on that. If you incentivize in some way, and it can be financial, it can be time off, it can be a recognition program where people are just recognized. It can be a combination of all these things. We have to get creative on making sure we elevate the standard of living for our people, because the world's not getting any less expensive, and plus, if you just do money and you don't do a pat on the back or a recognition in some way, that money's going to run out too. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they don't care about me as a person and my goals and moving me up the ladder if I want to be promoted here. So putting those two things together is really, really powerful, and people will respond to that.
So, one of the things, so those of you who do not know, and I'm pretty sure if you've been listening to this show, I'm in school, right? I decided to go back and finish up my degree. So one of the things that I've been learning in class is the idea of that top to bottom management style versus the bottom up, because sometimes we as entrepreneurs, CEOs, whatever it is, we don't always hear the people that are underneath of us. And so as you're stating, sometimes they don't feel like that they have any value to offer in that situation.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's got to be a two-way street. Obviously there's a hierarchy. There just has to be. Not everybody can come to the very top. I've had people tell me that before as an executive leader. Why do I need to go through my director and I can't come to you specifically if I have an issue? I said, well, because then if everybody did that, I wouldn't be able to lead properly. Wouldn't have enough hours in the day. That's why we have it there. However, there's ways to communicate back and forth, and then there is time to bring everybody together and address everybody together for sure. So it can't just be top down. It can't just be bottom up. We know that. It's got to be a two-way street where everybody's working together and understands why we do what we do. And as a leader, if we set that expectation right and we really explain the process, then people will respond to that. They'll know their guardrails and they'll appreciate them.
So in a situation like this, I think this is one of the key elements on scaling one's business, right? So what would be some other ideas to consider as they're trying to scale their business and help employee growth at the same time?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You have to, I mentioned earlier, you have to really get the processes in place. Again, the vision, the mission, the goals, the issues that need to be taken care of to reach those goals, and then standard operating procedures to be able to execute them. My favorite part of that is also having a scoreboard, creating a metrics table of some kind, some sort of a dashboard, a scoreboard that everybody sees when they need to see it. And so they can be monitoring the progress to make sure we're getting there. It's not always just numbers. It's for sure. It's going to be, comments and our discussions in our weekly meetings and stuff like that to know how close we are. Sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. That's part of the picture. But in order to grow, so let's just stop. Let's talk about the difference between grow and scale. Growing, people just think, let me just put in a bunch of new clients. Let me just put in a bunch of new customers, and we're going to grow. We're going to be great. Well, if you don't have a process to execute and really provide top-notch quality service or a quality product, those people are going to be in and out of the door, and they're not going to be retained. You're not going to be able to upsell them. You're not going to be able to create loyalty with your brand or anything. Right. So you have to make sure you execute properly, and everybody knows what to do, when they're supposed to do it, and how they're supposed to do it. So people come back and they become raving fans. And so if these plans aren't put into place, most people say, well, we'll get to them. We just got to go. We just got to sell it, and we just got to do it. Well, that won't last. It could last a long time if you're really good at just flying by the seat of your pants.
Right.
But most people, when they start growing the team, things will start imploding because people are like, oh, what about this situation? Oh, what about this situation? We need an FAQ. We need, all this stuff. And you're like, oh, then we don't have time to do that. So to get that plan in place to scale means a sustainable growth. So let's get out of that mindset of just growing, but to grow with sustainable growth to scale.
So as I'm listening, some people need to understand what it means to forecast or to, put some other, like you said, trying to find other ways to put plans in place or procedures or whatever else. So I think part of that comes with determining as a leader what type of culture you want to build within your organization. So how important is it to have, or what type of culture would you recommend for someone to have? I mean, there's no right or wrong. You get what I mean? Region and everything else makes a difference. But just some things that you've seen in your own coaching places or whatever, what coaches have you seen that's been kind of successful?
Yeah, communication. If you create a culture of communication, and that's the hardest one to crack. I've been at bigger organizations and smaller organizations, and coaching teams. It's all a challenge because it's hard. It's just hard to always communicate the right thing at the right time. Sometimes we just get tired, and I won't say lazy. I just think tired. There are definitely lazy leaders out there, but I think your audience is just going to be tired.
Right.
Because they're trying to grow this business maybe on the side, and you just think, oh well, maybe people just already know what I'm thinking, and that's hard. So to create a culture of communication, which then to be able to communicate well, you have to have a culture of integrity. People that say they're going to do what they're going to do. And so that's the culture that I like. And of course, if you do those things well, you're going to win. And everybody wants to win. Right. But if you just say, we're going to have a winning culture, like, what does that really mean? What do you have to do? What kind of culture do you need to win? Because of course, everybody wants to win.
Of course.
So if you communicate well and really have high integrity people, you're going to win.
So I know we've been talking about trying to build the leadership, and we're talking about culture and communication and things like that. But sometimes we lose our focus, right? Because we're too busy looking at the Joneses, and what they're doing and who our competitors are and things like that. So how would you encourage someone to stay on their path, on their journey, and not to be so concerned? You could look, but not be so concerned about what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've learned to always be a lifelong learner, always learn from other people's mistakes and their successes, but don't feel like you have to implement them right away. So if you read a good book or listen to one of your great podcasts, don't just run out there right away and say, okay, team, we're going to implement this because I heard it on the podcast last week.
Right.
People are going to be like, okay. And then you start doing that every other week or every month or, a couple times a week. And I read this in the book. I've been guilty of that. This sounds great. We need to do it. But you've got to, again, work with your team, mull it over, and think, how would this apply to my business? And sometimes you have to stop listening, not to your show, but other shows. You got to stop. Pick one. Don't just go crazy and have so many things that are speaking into your life, because you have to be able to process and then apply those things. And if you don't do that well, you just store up all this information and knowledge, and you'll go crazy because you don't know. Then you won't know which way is up, and you won't have the ability to move forward properly.
So Ryan, I appreciate you coming on today. So as I asked, that last question about keeping focus, right? Where can they contact you so you can lead them and guide them in keeping their focus and understanding how to deal with employee frustration or decreasing work quality or budget cuts or stagnated financial growth? Where can they contact you to understand and learn any of this stuff?
Yeah, I would love to hear from your viewers. 3 Sparrows, the number 3, Sparrows, ES.com. We'll drop that in the show notes, maybe.
Yes, we will.
And I've got a couple of free downloads for them there to be able to assess what they're doing, and give them a process to move forward with. And they can connect with me through my email on my website or on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. So all that information will be in the show notes, of course. But Ryan, I thank you very much for coming on the show today.
This is great, Maurice. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. But before I let you go, Ryan, I gotta ask you my question. My would you rather question.
Great.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
3 doors or a fork in the road. I'll take the fork in the road, 50-50 chance.
Is there a particular reason why the 50-50 specifically?
Yeah, I mean it's either going to be good or bad, right? I think I just like 2 decisions. Just give me 2 decisions. I'll make one the best I can.
Nice. Man, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yes, sir. Have a great day.
You too. And thank you very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?